Alright, solid month so far. Red Rising, done. The Lies of Loch Lamora, almost done. Goosebump books, done. Alright, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7 books done between July and August. Alright, 2023 is going swimmingly so far. I'm killing it. Let's just take a look at the backlog. Alright, let's start with Goosebumps here. Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls. I gotta read that one. Heard it's really good. And I Am Your Evil Twin. Really awesome cover. Gotta check that one out. The Mummy Walks. Curse of Camp Cold Lake. Love that cover. Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns. Now fantasy. What are we going to read next for fantasy? Gotta start Way of Kings. Not quite as thick as a Goosebump book, but we'll throw this little guy in there too. Golden Suns next. I gotta check out the blade itself. Forgetting Moon, Assassin's Apprentice, still gotta finish Fires of Heaven. Never did read The Hobbit. Gotta reread this again. Oh my god, it's my favorite. Words of Radiance. I can't wait. Okay. Good. I think I've got my next month or two planned out. The old backlog. Not to brag, you guys, but I feel like I'm probably the most qualified person to speak on this subject since I myself am going through this very issue right now. And the answer is not very simple. But there is some good news, everyone. In my opinion, we are in a golden age of books. Certainly in fantasy books. There are just so many series that are epic, world-renowned, and are modern. We are currently, like today, we are in the middle of a fantastic renaissance of fantasy books, in my opinion. There are so many series and so many authors that are very young. Even those that aren't, they are at the top of their game, in my opinion. There are so many that I just cannot get to it all. And that's part of the problem that I want to try to solve with this video is how do we combat the book backlog? How do we enjoy going through our backlog? What's the most productive way for you? It might not be the same for me as it is for you guys. The method I'm going to talk about today is a little different. But first, I did mention, obviously, that we're living in a golden age of books. So fantasy books. When I say that, several of you out there probably think, oh, he's talking about Game of Thrones. He's talking about The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. And I am, but no, guys, we maybe have to broaden our horizons a little bit. I swear, fantasy these days is a lot more than just Game of Thrones and, J.R.R. Tolkien's works and Harry Potter. While those are fantastic series, taking nothing away from them, there's so much more to get into, and the rabbit hole goes so much deeper than you guys could even understand. And maybe some of you do. Let me introduce you guys to some of the series that I think make up this absolute goldmine of content that we are getting nowadays. Let's start with a classic series that is not Game of Thrones, and that is The Wheel of Time. This is actually the book series that got me back into reading. It actually is kind of emotional for me because I super duper have a soft spot in my heart for this series. It can be a grind. It is a grind. And actually right now I'm on a little bit of a hiatus from Wheel of Time because I read basically 4.5 of the books. And that was, a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand pages. And I just needed a break from it. This series is, like I said, it's a massive world. The cast here is super fantastic. You just instantly fall in love with all the characters. They have different dynamic. There is mistrust at times. But then they also do have each other's back. They're very much friends and family. And the epic adventure that they go on is well worth the time. I'm in the middle of this series. Gotta finish it. Up next, I am just now getting through this book, guys. It is the first book in the Gentleman Bastard, yes, the Gentleman Bastard series. This is The Lies of Loch Lamora. Guys, just another disclaimer. I started several of these series, but I have not finished many of them, actually most all of them. We'll get to the reason why whenever I show you guys my method for how I want to get through a lot of these series. But anyways, The Lies of Loch Lamora follows a band of young, clever thieves who you instantly feel a kinship with. This book, guys, I would say, this book series, at least based off book one, it is kind of, it's fantasy, but it's sort of the Goonies if the Goonies took place in a harsh, medieval kind of pirate setting. Heartbreaking, it's heartwarming, and it's hilarious. The Scott Lynch is now one of my favorite authors ever. I cannot wait to review this book for you guys separately from this video, but just know this is another nice feather in the fantasy cap for a series that I am loving and cannot wait to read more of. I literally can't wait. That's what we're going to tackle here. Is I can't wait, so I have to figure out a way to read them all these series at the same time in a way, but we'll get to it. Next up, that you guys should check out, that I can't wait to check out, is the First Law series. This is by Joe Abercrombie. My copy here actually has a strange issue. Apparently, whatever paper mill or whatever it went through forgot to chop off this little extra. So on page 17, I have more of that page than probably anybody else in the world. So anyways, I actually, guys, I have to be honest, I actually cheated a little bit. I read the first couple pages of this book randomly one day, and it got its hooks into me, and I could just tell, like, I had that addicting feeling to a book that you guys probably know what I mean by that. Just when a book, you can tell you're going to love it. And I haven't gotten around to it yet. Hopefully that will happen soon, but yeah, this book is seriously something to behold. Really highly recommend this series, and it's brutal, and I cannot wait to get to it. Next, I actually finished the first book in this series as well. This is the first book in the Rising Saga. I already said enough to you guys about this in my review, but I'll touch on a couple small points. This series is awesome for several reasons. It's fantasy, but not really. It kind of is futuristic. There is a weapon in this book that I liken, and many others liken, to the next lightsaber, basically. What it is a whip. It is like a metal whip that if you hit a switch on the handle of the whip, it'll straighten itself into a sword, basically. And you can toggle between sword and whip, and it is apparently the sharpest weapon in the galaxy. And it is awesome. It is called the Razor in these books. And the first book here, very much like a razor, is very short and quick, to the point. A lot of the paragraphs just kind of go. The pace is very fast, and the brotherhood between the characters in this, and even the sisterhood, there are girls in this book that the main character is very close with, and you really get that kinship amongst them and the rest of the characters, and just the world that's created here, the futuristic sci-fi world that Pierce Brown created, is another highly addictive and highly engaging world that I just cannot wait to continue with. And I will be continuing with that here with the second book in the series, which I do have with me, Golden Sun. And I cannot wait to get to Golden Sun. It's been sitting on my shelf, just tempting me like crazy to read it. All right, moving right along. Another great fantasy series. I'm already getting tired of talking, but hey, let's just keep going. Maybe you'll come across a series that you want to start off with, and maybe this one is it. The Assassin's Apprentice series, guys. Actually, I should say the Farseer trilogy. This is book one, Assassin's Apprentice. Again, Robin Hobb, one of the great voices in fantasy. From what I heard and could tell, she really has a great sense of prose, and her writing style is just eloquent and endearing, and apparently the characters in here as well are great. It is a fantastic coming-of-age story. It is the hero's journey, and it's another one that I can't wait to get into. It's killing me. It's sitting on my shelf staring at me, and I can't get to it yet. Okay, next. Another one that I have not started and cannot wait to start. It is Brian Lee's The Five Warrior Angels trilogy. This is also, again, book one. This is a honker, isn't it? My goodness, this just feels like you took a stack of printer paper, ripped open the plastic, and basically, this is what you get out of it. But this is The Forgetting Moon. Guys, how about that cover? It's sort of vague enough that you can kind of make everything out, and almost it does look like 1980s hair metal band's album, right? This book series has been called heavy metal fantasy by some. I'll let your own imaginations take it away from there. I know mine does, but this is another meaty series that I cannot wait to sink my teeth into. That is The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee, who actually, Brian is a YouTuber. His channel is actually very interesting. He talks about writing these books. I highly recommend his YouTube channel, and I cannot wait to hopefully recommend his books. Before we get to my last series that I cannot wait to sink my teeth into, let's give my beloved Goosebump brothers and sisters out there some love. Let's go over some of the books in that series that I shamefully need to get to and have not yet. But that's why we're doing this video, right? I am perfectly ashamed to admit, fellow Goosebumpers and R.L. Stine acolytes, I've yet to read The Haunted Mass 2. I have to reread Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls. This one I remember being pretty brutal for a Goosebump book. I can't wait to get back to this one. This one I'm not sure if I've heard great things about I'm Your Evil Twin, but the cover itself is just nuts, isn't it? This might be one of my favorite Tim Jacobus covers. That is appropriately creepy. Can't wait to get to this book. Yes, I know. Stay Out of the I haven't read Stay Out of the Basement yet. I also have not read The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. I'm getting to it. I promise I'll get to it. By the way, one side note if I could, guys, because I am such a nut for book covers. Not done by Tim Jacobus, this cover. And coincidentally, it's a shame because I think this cover strangely fits exactly in with his style for the most part. And it is a insane cover, isn't it? I mean, it just looks really good and it fits. And I wish he did it. And actually, Tim Jacobus did redo this cover for a Goosebump. I think it was a reprint of the books. And I actually do not like Tim Jacobus' cover of this better than the original. So there's that. But I haven't read it yet. Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns. I have to reread this one. This was always one of my more favorite covers as well, too. I thought that was very, very appropriate for the season and the genre. And finally, the last camp book standing between me and putting up a video about my favorite Goosebump camp stories is The Curse of Camp Cold Lake. And I actually have a blown up print of this cover because I actually loved it so much. And the other cover that I have, another classic, is actually up there. It is the Haunted Mass cover. Love that. Tim Jacobus signed it as well. I'll have to put up my Camp Cold. Actually, if you guys have been on the channel before, you know that I have a poster for that cover. You've probably seen it before. I digress. Yes, my Goosebump peeps. I have a lot to get to, and I'm going to find a way. We'll talk about it later in the video, how I can fit these in with the other books I need to get to. But the number one book series I cannot wait to get to is Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive series. This is book 1. This is The Way of Kings. We talk a lot about covers on this channel. What a gorgeous cover. I love the fantasy landscape. It has a glory to it. I love the sunset. I just love the look of the world going on here, right, guys? And I'm ashamed to say I've never read a Brandon Sanderson book. I have been trying to save the best for last, or what a lot of people consider to be the best fantasy writer for last. That is Brandon Sanderson. The best part, guys, is if you're like me and haven't started the series yet, we're currently still in the midst of this book series. So you still have time to get caught up. Book 5 of the Stormlight Archive is going to be called Wind and Truth, and it releases next year, hopefully. I thoroughly plan on being caught up with the series when the time comes for that book to release. Brandon Sanderson is becoming a household name in book circles outside of fantasy. So you Goosebump fans, if you're even a little bit interested in fantasy, I would consider picking up Brandon Sanderson's stuff, The Way of Kings. I've been kind of saving up my hype to read it and get some of these smaller books out of the way first, but my patience is almost up. And actually, this book is the reason I wanted to make this video. I can't wait any longer. Let's talk about it. Now, with all that in mind, let's go ahead and battle the book log. This is how I plan to battle mine. So I devised a little bit of a plan. This is my personal plan. You guys do not have to do this. I am going to call my method for tackling this the Chronicler carousel. And that is, of course, without a hint of self-aggrandizing. I kid, obviously. I put Chronicler in there, but it is a carousel. Or if you guys prefer, maybe you could call it the literary loop or the rotating reads, if you will. It goes like this for me. So let's take an example. I want to dip my toes into as many book series of fantasy and Goosebumps as I can, but in a way that makes sense and in a way that I'm not waiting so long to get to these series. Okay, guys, so I also wanted to give you a quick, actual physical visual of what's happening here as well, so you guys can maybe picture it a little clearer. So like I mentioned, these are 3 book series that I want to read right now. So the Chronicler Carousel, the Literary Loop, we have book 1 of each of the 3 series I want to read. Red Rising, Lies of Loch, Lamora, Way of Kings, right? So I finished Red Rising, so we're moving on to the Lies of Loch, Lamora. As we move on, Red Rising, book 1 in that series, will get replaced by book 2 in the series, Golden Sun. As I move on to Lies of Loch, Lamora, I go ahead, I finish book 1 of this series. As I move on to Way of Kings, the Lies of Loch, Lamora is going to get replaced by book 2, Red Seas Under Red Skies, and so on and so forth, right? So I get to Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, I finish that book up, I loop back up to Golden Sun, and while I'm doing that, the Way of Kings is then replaced by book 2 in that series, Words of Radiance, and I wait to come back around to that book. And around we go. Therefore, you have the carousel, the literary loop, whatever you guys want to call it. So that's basically what I'm going for here. This is how I plan to consume as many different series as I possibly can, because that's something I want to do. I could, I have a hard time personally, especially if it's a chunky series. Too much seems to get in the way, and I think it's good for me personally because it varies up my reading, and the series don't get boring to me. That's an issue that I ran into whenever I started The Wheel of Time. I read basically 4.5 of those books back to back. I learned quickly I cannot function that way, that it's too much of the same series. Literally was wearing away. It was making me not enjoy reading, actually. If I can be perfectly blunt with you guys, I almost wanted to take a break from reading for a while. I realized I had to veer clear of ever making that mistake again. And I want to give myself and give you guys permission to go ahead and do this. If there's a lot of different series you want to try, hey, even if you can read them at the same time, I can't do that. That's one thing I will not do, is read a book from each series at the same time as another book from a different series. I can't do that. That's too much information for me all at once, and it just does not work out at all for me. Okay, but that's a me thing. But I will say, as a small caveat to that, the only time that I will read 2 books at the same time is if one book is way smaller and much easier of a finish than another book. So like I did with The Lies of Loch Lamora. This paperback is actually about 700 pages. So at the same time, I was making my way through about 2 or 3 Goosebumps books at the same time. So I could kind of keep caught up on that series as well. That is easy for me, because I could literally take a day where I will take a day off from the novel and read a couple Goosebumps books, get a couple of those knocked out, just so I can kind of move my way through that series quickly as well, because I do want to get that series finished. And Goosebumps is nice because it's not one continuous story, right? It's like an anthology. There's a lot of different stories. I can kind of pick up whichever one I'm feeling like reading and just kind of go with it for the day and be done and get done with it and move on. That is the one instance in which I personally can read 2 books at once, is if one is a lot smaller. But that's me. But anyways, back to the carousel. So I showed you guys the order that I'm going to go in. I think that this method is going to help prevent burnout, which is real with me, and it's real with probably a lot of readers out there. I want to make sure that I'm getting to as much of it as I possibly can. And like I mentioned, this also gives me the freedom to where if I finish one of these series, I can simply, let's say I finished up this series, I'll go ahead, take it out of the loop. It will then get replaced by book 1 of a new series I want to read. For example, maybe The Blade itself. I want to get to the first Law series next. So then, of course, then it continues. that is a method that I think will work good for me. And even if I finish a series, maybe I can just have it be a carousel of 2 book series and then maybe rotate in single books, right? So maybe if there is a standalone book that I want to read by Stephen King, a standalone by, heck, who knows, Dean Koontz or something. Yeah, maybe I can just rotate that in as need be. But I like this system. Maybe you guys like the system as well. Hopefully you find it kind of intriguing and maybe something that you'll try. But I am liking it so far, and it is working for me. It's a constant struggle this day and age. Finding free time is harder than ever. But I really hope that this helped you guys. Please let me know your own personal methods in the comments below, or maybe you have an even better method. But honestly, at the end of the day, reading should be fun and not a chore, just like anything else that you enjoy. But I think it's cool to love something this much that devising a plan for it is actually enjoyable. I enjoy doing this and coming up with this and discussing it with you guys and letting you know my thoughts. So I hope this was enjoyable. Please check out some of my other content, guys, if you please. Welcome to the channel. Please like and subscribe if you feel like hanging around with us for a while. And we will talk again very soon. Midnight Chronicler, out.